Your host, Dr. Cheapest Sunflower. So, the first organized policing system in what became United States was not created to protect the people. It was created to protect stolen land, stolen labor, and stolen wealth. Before there were police departments, there were slave patrols. Before slave patrols, there were private guards hired by plantation owners, and before those guards, there was a large scale land theft followed by fear of resistance. This system did not malfunction. It is it is actually functioning exactly like it is designed to this very day. Today, I'm not starting with opinions. I'm starting with the timeline. Because once you hear the order of events, the story tells itself.
Every dawn is a doorway, and dreamers walk through on purpose. Here we master mindset, raise oral intelligence, and rebuild legacy brick by brick. We honor who we were before the world tried to rename us. I'm Dr. Sean, dentist, alchemist, Niiji, daughter of the land, and this is the Hood to Hooded show, where we transform, rise, and stay risen. Welcome to the tribe.
So that's what we are getting into today. Welcome to the tribe. This podcast is about positivity, inspiration, and knowledge to keep us motivated and growing. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Start tapping those hearts and let me know how you feeling if you sending good positive vibes this morning. Okay? So listen carefully to the order. Now what you were told versus what actually happened. Alright? What's up, TikTok? How y'all feeling? How y'all feeling? What actually happened? That's what we're going to get into this morning. OCO to the Niiji. Sending love to the ancestors. Sending love to the ancestors this morning. So before the 1600s, indigenous nations, the melanated, autochthonous, Niiji, copper tone, indigenous, Amerindians already lived and governed this land. Tamerica. It's going under a transformation. We uncovering so many names it's been changed to. There were laws, there were systems of accountability, there were councils, kinship responsibilities, and consequences, right? There were no roaming armed patrols terrorizing communities because land was not stolen, hoarded, or treated as property in a colonial sense. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Right. So what happened? In the early 1600s, European powers issued land charters on paper, claiming territory that they did not own. Colonists arrived with documents, not consent. They claimed land through force, fraud, and treaty violations, all from the order of the Pope, the Vatican, the papal bulls, and the doctrine of discovery. Okay? Immediately, colonists, once they got here in the 1600s, they faced a big problem. They had this stolen land, but they had no labor force. Who was going to work this land? So they exploited indigenous people, the Niiji, the enslaved. They imported indentured Slavic servants, European, a very few from Africa, right? At this stage, race was not the main category. Labor was your status, right? So poor Europeans, Africans, indigenous people often worked together, lived together, resisted together. But when I'm talking about indigenous people, I'm talking about the melanated autochthonous Niiji, who were already here. Okay? So by the mid 1600s, resistance began. People began to escape these colonized racial acts of treason, genocide, homicide, just KID napping, all these things. People began to escape. They started to revolt. People sabotaged the plantations. You know, it was just a war on the land from people who were invaders, pirates, pilgrims, colonists, whatever you want to call them, you know, come on stolen land. We know in the 1600s there was only about 2,000 settlers, and then the numbers grew massively as the violence grew. But the Niiji, the enslaved, they began to sabotage the plantation, and the elites became terrified, not of crime, but of unity, which is the same terror that exists today. Unity of the Niiji, right? Right? They became terrified of unity. So in the late 1600s, colonial governments created racial laws. White became a legal category. Africans and indigenous people lost legal statuses. So this means the Coppertone indigenous Mississippians, they started to be mixed with whoever was brought over here. But we know that the indigenous Niiji were not brought on any boats because there's no evidence of that. We need some evidence. Like, where is the evidence? Okay? So, slavery became a hierarchy. Land ownership was restricted for the melanated community. This is when race became invented, because land theft was required. It required division. As the plantations began to expand, enslaved labor became the engine of wealth on this land. Resistance increased. Plantation owners then hired private guards, right, to patrol the land, the roads, the waterways. These guards were not protecting communities, but they were protecting stolen assets. Then in 1704, South Carolina formed this system. Private guards became slave patrols, mandated by law. All eligible white men were required to participate. Patrols were publicly funded, and private violence became public policy. I know that was a lot. Slave patrols spread through the southern colonies. They were given broad powers to stop people, enter homes, enforce curfews, break up gatherings. You know, they were given so much power, we could say, right? And they could use violence without consequences. So this is the timeline. This is why everything else that I explained tonight matters. Exactly in that order. So let's go over the order again so we can kind of see what we're talking about, just in case you just came in. So we are on the same page. I'm going to explain it in a different way. Explain this order in a different way. because we have to understand how the world we live in now became to exist, how the bills became to be outrageous, how the control, how everything is how it is right now. And I feel like this is going deep, and I'm often touching on this topic because I'm so interested in it. I just don't understand the evilness of it, and I'm still trying to like understand it. Like, maybe I'll never understand it, but I mean, it's worth a conversation because the shit's still going on today. Okay? So we're going to go back to the timeline so everybody on the same page. You just joining in, make sure you tapping those hearts. Make sure you sharing, make sure you like it, make sure you following. You might want to take some notes. I don't know. You might just wake up by the end of this. Hopefully you will understand how deep this really like goes, you know. You'll understand how deep the knowledge goes. So the timeline from land theft to slave patrols, right? So the indigenous nations, the Niiji, the Merry Indians, already had land that we occupied and governed in the 1600s. Early 1600s, Europeans came with land charters from the Pope, from the Doctrine of Discovery. Colonists arrived with paper authority. They didn't arrive with consent. They just had a piece of paper saying, hey, if you're not a white Christian prince, I own this land. Someone asked me yesterday about the 1600s. And it was like, oh, maybe I need to go deeper into the 1600s to see what exactly was going on with the land. So during this time, there were no prisons, really. No roaming armed patrols like you see now, right? Europeans arrived with land charters given from a whole nother country. It doesn't make sense. This wasn't told to the indigenous people here. You know what I mean? Colonists arrived with paper authority. And then later in the 1600s, people start to rebel. And they realize, okay, if we're going to, enslave these people, we need some type of patrols to guard them. In the mid 1600s, sabotages, revolts, this goes on all the way until racial laws were created. In the 1600s is when the racial laws begin to be created. What does that mean? Because I just learned this. Like, what the hell is a racial law in the 1660s all the way to the 1700s? It gets a little interesting and spooky. Okay? So the racial law said white becomes a legal category. Yesterday we determined, okay, how did white become the majority? It became the majority because there were 20 nations that we listed yesterday that were involved with them coming together and creating a voting bloc so that they could have more power, more unity, So it's about 20 different nations under that category. Probably more than that, actually. That's how they became the majority and flooded the block. Once you come over here, you have to check a box. You're going to either be white from a European country, which is a lot of people, or you're going to be in some other boxes. This is why racial reclassification is so detrimental to the Niiji, because of what they did with what I'm about to tell you by the end of this live. Okay? So 1660s to 1700s, African and indigenous people lose their legal standing. So basically anybody melanated on this continent really lost their legal standing. So indigenous, Choctaw, Creek, Seminole, Appalachee, whatever your tribe is, I'm from those tribes, the southeastern Mississippi mound builders, the free indigenous sovereigns, lost our legal status because they wanted to put us in the same box. Racial laws were created. Slavery then becomes hereditary because of your skin color, right? Land ownership was restricted on a land that these guys didn't own. I'm still trying to understand it. Race was invented as a law, not biology. And we gotta understand this for people who go around acting like race is biology. No, this is a law. How did this law become to be? Open your mind, open your ears. Let's dive in. So the late 1600s, plantation economy expands, right? And slave labor becomes central to the wealth of this country. Resistance increases. Plantation owners, they're the reason why we really got the po-po right now, right? I discovered they the real reason. It's always some spooky stuff going on. Plantation owners. So they began to have revolts, and they hired private guards to watch the land, control movement, capture escapees, intimidate communities, all at the hands of a person who stole land and enslaved the people who really owned the land, owned their own land. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but we just try to understand the true facts. 1704, South Carolina, right? This is an important year. I want you to remember this year. 1704, South Carolina. The first formal slave patrols created by law. So we're trying to figure out. So George Washington didn't become the president until 1789. 1790. This is later. But before then, in South Carolina, what we know is now South Carolina, this is where the madness really goes crazy, because they already had the stolen land. They were having problems, people revolting, people not bowing down. So they said, okay, we got to put this on paper and make this legal for us to do what we doing. Make it illegal for you to try to escape and get freedom, because the Pope said we own you. So the first formal slave patrols created by law, 1704, South Carolina. These private plantation guards became publicly mandated. Where they do that at? Right here. Patrols were funded by taxes. Oh yeah. All eligible white men required to participate. Oof. This is a moment private violence becomes public policy. You can easily see right here in 1704 where the drama really worsens and deepens, and where the evil and the madness really begins with, the prison, locking melanated Niiji men up 10 times more, changing the identity. You can kind of see why the identity had to be erased to fund the prison system, to fund all these things. They had to label you as black, take you out of the sovereignty, so that they can make these slave patrols stay on you. We're going to see what happened and what did the slave patrol turn into, right? But this was mandated by law in the 1700s, 1704. So 1700s, this idea and actuality of a slave patrol spreads across the southern colonies. They say, oh, this is a great idea. Let's make this a law everywhere. Patrols gain sweeping powers. They can stop anyone. Does this sound familiar? This is before there was a government, before there was a president. This is the foundation of what this country thought that was okay. Still haven't given an apology. They don't really give a fuck. They gonna come on in and say, oh, shut up, this was so long ago. Why do you care? Who cares if I'm benefiting right now? Shut up. We don't care. They had the power then in the 1700s we talking about to enter the homes of any melanated person. There was no such thing as a warrant. They could just come in, steal, loot, lie, unalive. They could do whatever. They enforced curfews on sovereign people. They saw you out and you were melanated, they stopping you. They had curfews. They could break up gatherings. These new eligible white men, funded by taxes, publicly mandated, who originated from the private guards at the plantation, and they were required to participate. Let's not forget that part. Right? And they also could use violence without any consequences. You're talking about bullying and torture at the maximum volume. This is like enforcing bullying. It's more than bullying. It's like enforcing, I don't even know what to call it. What do you even call it? It's just disgusting. I don't even know. It doesn't even have a name in my eyes. It's like disgusting. But that's the timeline. Everything else tonight is an explanation, but nothing contradicts that order. Nothing contradicts that order. So the private guards became the public patrols. What was the mechanism? Plantation guards protecting stolen land and labor. Right? That was first. Get that part. Colonies then realized, hey, centralized enforcement is cheaper and more effective. And we can make these people who we now require to go to work pay for this for us. That just sounds so awesome. Yeah. Violence was legalized, normalized, and outsourced to the public, to the white men who were required to participate. Yeah. They were rewarded with tobacco and money. Right? Slave patrols were plantation security socialized into society. This is where, what we realized earlier is that this is all the same system. What did the slave patrols actually do when they were in the 1700s? What did they actually do, and where did it really come from? It was first instituted in Barbados when they colonized the Greater and Lesser Antilles, Barbados, all of the islands. And then they brought it here. So South Carolina copied, and then it was copied everywhere. They would be on horses, walking around with arms, harassing people. Okay? So what did they actually do? They controlled movement. They demanded passes. They criminalized gatherings, entered homes. We already know that. Inflicted punishment and terror. What else did they do? Slave codes. They created these codes, which was basically the first laws that were targeting melanated people. They created the Negro Act, anti-assembly laws, literacy bans. Like, you see what I'm saying? Everything was just intentionally to break your spirit, take happiness, put you in a mental institution where you can't even focus and think, and you think that it's something wrong with you, versus it being something wrong with the system. Weapon prohibitions, travel restrictions. Once theft was written into law, it became order. What else? They did it even through non-violent enforcement in the church. It justified hierarchy. They recorded ownership in church documents. I don't know if y'all understand how deep that go. In their church documents, they were recording who owned what enslaved person. This was framed as obedience, as morals. Again, I'll tell you, the churches funded enslavement through the Vatican. It's a history that you just can't deny. What about schools? Yeah, schools control literacy. They erase language and identity for our young adults. They taught them how to comply, go to work, shut the fuck up. Go to work. Right? So the patrol, the S patrol controlled the body. It controlled the people. The church controlled the conscience. And the school controlled the future. So how do we go from patrols to the police? Let's talk about it. You got the patrol leaders. They turned them into the sheriffs. Right? The patrol rules The slave codes, all that, they turned this into the police codes. The surveillance, nighttime monitoring, making sure you weren't walking around without papers. This was turned into law enforcement. Jim Crow was turned into modern criminal law. And this is why we're still paying for this today. You got tax-funded enforcement, surveillance culture. They will stalk you in the South. Criminalization of poverty. We see that right now, making homelessness, vagrancy, not having money to pay for all of this outrageous stuff a crime. They criminalizing poverty still to this day. Property is prioritized over people. And we are funding a system designed to protect wealth, not humanity. Right? That's why this is crazy. It's outrageous. Now, I just want to go a little bit deeper into this and let y'all know the real. And give you a full breakdown of what I'm talking about. So let's go a little bit deeper with a full breakdown. So we already know what led to the patrols. Let me just go back for a second. Let's go back for a second. Let's go back. Right. So we know that the slave codes existed long before the patrols existed, right? The modern day police officers, as you see right now, they had the slave codes. They banned them from owning guns, learning to read, traveling without permission. They had militias and posses which would hunt down runaways and crush any sign of revolt. They would, even if it was a rumor, they would stop it. And then because they had a fear of rebellion after events like Stonewall Rebellion in 1739 and Nat Turner's revolt in 1831, white elites panicked and demanded more organized permanent control because they didn't want any more of these rebellions. So the slave patrols that were on the plantation, right, they turned them into the officers. Now let's go into what they were really doing behind the scenes. So it was a group of white men, and again, this was required for it to be white men. Like if you didn't have a job already in like politics and you were just doing nothing, it was required for you to join the patrol, the S Patrol. It was normally a group of 4 to 7 per group who rode horsebacks and walked around the rural areas and towns, especially at night, to enforce slave codes. What was their main job? Their main job was enforcing passes and curfews. So if they thought that you were enslaved, even if you were free, the indigenous, melanated, autochthonous, Niiji, Coppertone, Mississippi, mound builders, reclassified as Negro, talking about you, right? They thought that, hey, you still enslaved. That was actually the definition of enslavement according to the Pope and the doctrine of discovery was, hey, if they're not white Christian princes, then they are enslaved. If you're indigenous, you're enslaved. That's the actual definition. So what did this mean? This means that they forced our ancestors to carry written passes from whoever they were enslaved by, and even if they were free, they had to have a pass. And we're going to get into what this pass evolved to today. And if you didn't have a pass, you could be arrested or whipped. Curfews were common. Enslaved people were often required to be off the roads and in their homes by sunset or by a specific hour, like 9 o'clock p.m. Oh yeah, this is adults they're enforcing this with. The patrols going around the town. So you kind of get this real same thing going around, especially in cities like the one that I came from. You know where I'm from, then you know. If you were caught without a pass, they were seized, questioned, and usually whipped on the spot and returned to their enslaver. Or if they didn't have one, then they would give you one. Then they also broke up the gathering. So any group of enslaved or free sovereign Amerindians, melanated autochthonous, Mississippi mound builders, Appalachian, Muskogean, Creek, Seminole, Choctaw, Muskogean, the Mohawk, whatever tribe you want to name, if they were free, meeting at night, gathering, this was considered unlawful assembly, and they could be violently dispersed. Even if it was a spiritual meeting, religious meeting, a funeral, a wedding, they could break it up. They could search homes, enter the quarters, buildings of any free person, and search for weapons, stolen goods. If they found a Bible, anything they could make up. The S Patrol was also used for returning people back to where they came from if they tried to run away from the violence. And there were laws to back them, such as slave codes and fugitive slave laws. This is crazy during these times, living during these times. It's just crazy. In Washington, D.C., for example, a night watch, a formalized slave patrol, so the slave patrol became, the patrols. They arrested melanated people they found out after the curfew, whipped them because they were caught without permission. Enslaved people were not allowed to live independent, squat on land. They had to be on a plantation or a town under white control. Indigenous, sovereign, melanated, Niiji, our ancestors who were already here, we wondering what happened to them. These are the laws that really gave them no freedom on paper. Even if they were already free, sovereign, doing their own thing, this is what actually took it away. So it made it to where even sovereign indigenous Niiji were banned from owning land in certain areas. And the patrols are the ones who enforce these restrictions to prevent the development of melanated communities from forming outside of white supervision. Because we weren't smart enough for that, according to them. Right? They came out with the vagrancy and trading laws. If you appeared to be unemployed without a clear master, even if you were free, there was a law against that. Trading between enslaved and free sovereign people was illegal, right? And what kind of force would they do? These patrols back then, they were authorized to use violence as a tool control, and their methods were brutal. We hear about it all the time, but they say it in bragging rights. And it's like, that's not something to brag about. It's actually like kind of psychotic. Okay? So whippings were the standard punishment for being off a plantation without a pass or gathering in a group. In North Carolina, patrols could give up to 39 lashes. I'm talking about the back then police. They could whoop you. In 1856, Salisbury, North Carolina, patrol contract captains were told to give no more than 15 lashes for being off the premises without a permission. So they could do all these things to you on the spot without a trial or even reporting to whoever they said you belonged to at the time. And that is even crazy, saying you belong to somebody. Some states limited the whippings so that the enslaved people could still work the next day. But many patrols ignored the limits. Does this sound familiar? When we talk about George Floyd, when we talk about so many people, the list could go on and on and on. The patrols carried GUNS's, clubs, dogs, And even if they unalived the person, it was not treated as a serious crime. That just sounds too familiar to right now. They did torture. It's sad. Branding, shackling, mutilation, all of these different things they did. Mass hangings, killings, all of that. This is what they did. So what about like the physical and spatial control? How did they start to control how we move, which is still right now? This is where they created the patrol system, which created a world where we, as melanated people, could not move freely at all. They patrolled, which is in their name, patrol. What's up, Lala? Just got that #1 gifter badge. What's going on? Uh-oh. Let's turn these things off. What is going on? Turn that off. What up? Supreme Rising. What's going on, CB Kicks? Supreme Rising, guys. Right? So the patrols, the slave patrols, patrolled the main roads and crossroads at night and would stop anyone who was melanated who could not produce a pass. So if you didn't have a pass back then, it was yours. Even now, if you don't have a pass, what's up, la la? The pass now, we know it is called a what? Could someone figure it out before I tell you? But I'm gonna tell you in a couple of minutes, right? So they would stop you if you didn't have a pass. Patrols blocked bridges. They blocked rivers and crossings to prevent anyone from escaping by foot or boat on this land. This is the 1700s. If you just now joining in, we talking about how the slave patrol turned into the actual patrols, which actually really impacts our freedom of movement right now as sovereign people. And I'm just trying to connect the dots because I want to make it make sense how our people was just like bamboozled like this, and this is a key to it. Just to rewind, slave patrol started 1704, but in the 1600s, this is when they started to steal the land, needed labor, so they wanted to protect their assets. They started plantation guards, and these later turned into, said Trump now, exactly, this turned into slave patrols, where they would walk around and harass melanated people, incarcerate them because they had rules, and then they forced free white men who were poor to be slave patrols. They forced them. This was required by law, right? That's where we at. So we talking about what they actually did. So there was a no freedom to walk at night law. What kind of mess is that? You want to go out for a snack, they gonna lock you up. Back in those days, they would. You had to be required to be in your quarters by 9 p.m. or you would be seized and punished. Okay? It's sad. All this is really, really sad. And it had long-term impacts on right now. The curfews, the vagrancy laws. God help us. What's up, Zanny? Good morning. Peace and blessings, Zanny. Thank you for following. Uh-oh. Whoop. The topic is heavy right now, but we diving into it, you know. So if we go back to 1619, going back to the question someone asked me earlier, the timeline before the slave patrol, right? We're talking about 1619 to the 1616. This is when chattel slavery takes shape. They begin to steal the land, you know, us having weapons, gatherings, movement, making it a crime to run away from people who trying to capture you. And just saying that made me almost want to like cry, because it's just like, I'm trying not to be angry, but it's just so devastating to hear what they were doing. Pull up on the land and make it illegal for you to run away. What the hell is that? They made it illegal for you to run away from someone who is trying to capture you. Just like now. That's why there are 10 times as many melanated men in America being incarcerated into the prison pipeline. Because they made it illegal for them to not be harassed. It's actually the law for them to harass you. All stemming from the slave patrols. So when chattel slavery was taking place 1616 to 1660s, this was going on. Banning anything, banning literacy, banning anything, banning you gathering and being happy. It was the ultimate decade, the ultimate century for them to break your spirit. Make you feel like you were nothing and create laws that put you at the bottom of the totem pole. Now the first slave codes were in the 1640s. This was before the president, before the government. And I have to understand this because it's just like explaining everything. So the laws require white men to join posses to hunt runaways, laying the groundwork for organized crime, or organized patrols, I meant. Right. So Barbados again was the first passed law. This was in Barbados in 1688. Barbados passed a law requiring enslaved people to carry a pass when they were off the plantation. This was copied in the mainland, where it spread to South Carolina and Virginia, where they first started to ban your travel. That's the biggest form of control, is banning your freedom to move. So you couldn't leave. And many cities require enslaved people to wear metal badges, slave badges they call them, like Charleston, South Carolina. You were forbidden from being on the roads and towns at night. They had night watches. This is crazy. And what about this slave pass? It was a small handwritten note from the person who had captured you against your will, or if you didn't have a job and they could put you, into slavery because it was illegal not to have a job, and if you couldn't find a job, then they made you go to work for free because it was illegal not to have. You get what I'm trying to say? So the slave pass had the person's name or description. Then what this sound like? Your town or your plantation, the date or a time limit, and a signature of the enslaver. And you had to carry this pass at all times and show it to any white person who asked. Even free people had to then start having passes. If caught without your pass, you were seized, whipped, and returned to your enslaver. So cities like Charleston, enslaved people who worked in towns, they had to wear the metal badge, right? And then for free people, now this is what really got me when I was doing the research on this topic, was about the free people. This is what really, really shook me. You had to have freedom papers. Sometimes you just gotta laugh to keep from I don't know. You had to have freedom papers. This was for free melanated people. Our ancestors had to have freedom papers. What the hell was that? So they pull up and say, hey, where's your freedom paper? We just made that up. You don't got it? That's illegal. I'm gonna lock you up for no reason. Literacy, a ban on literacy laws. What? Oh, you got the book you reading? Let me lock you up for reading. Pretty evil stuff here. So free melanated people, the Niiji, the autochthonous copper tone married Indians, right? We had to carry freedom papers, also called certificates of freedom, to prove that you were not enslaved. What? Wait a minute. It was issued by a court, and it issued by a court. So you mean to tell me sovereign people had to now go to your court to get a freedom paper called a certificate of freedom so they could prove they weren't enslaved, and you're going to be the one to do it? And this is where our people got bam, wham, and shamboozle, I figured it out. I mean, I don't know if I figured it out, but I'm connecting the dots. That it now makes sense to me how so many of us get caught up in the paperwork from the beginning. How it became a generational curse. Zach, chat, my dentist said I need a root canal and a crown next week. She said she'll use Mr. Buzz. What? I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I hope your root canal go good, but the ending part, I don't know about that part. Anywho, so we had to carry freedom paperwork to say that we wasn't enslaved, and then we had to get this paperwork through their court. So you mean to tell me I'm going to go to your court that you just made up to try to enslave me, and you're going to say that I'm free? No, you're actually going to be the one to change and reclassify me. And say, no, you're not free because you're not a Christian prince. You're not a white man. What are you talking about? Free? That's impossible in my eyes. You can't make this stuff up. I'm sorry this hurt a lot of people's feelings, but I'm actually not sorry because we have to know. You know, and it's really, really sad, the things that they hide to cover up. And I keep trying to figure out how we got bamboozled. If we were sovereign on this land, what happened? And whoever asked that question yesterday, they said, what happened in the 1600s? That's what prompted me to go back to the 1600s. Because I went to 313 CE with Constantine. I went to the 400s with, you know, the popes who were creating the doctrine of discovery, the papal bulls. Like, we done went to Christopher Columbus in the 1400s, down in the islands, the Bahamas, down in Haiti and Jamaica, all of those islands, they were there. And then they finally got here on the coast, in Massachusetts, in Florida, and they started going to war. And I couldn't figure out where did it go from war to them putting us on paperwork under their control. And this is the moment when they said, okay, since we're going to make the enslaved people have paperwork, and when you go out, you don't know who is enslaved and who is not, because they all melanated. If we brought somebody from Africa, they going to look like these sovereign melanated indigenous people here, because it's a lot of us. And there's no way for us to gain control over them except, like we learned yesterday, than to create a voting bloc where 20 nations get together. We know their names. Maybe I should go back and tell you the nations, but 20 nations got together and they all had to check a box, and they all checked the box white. So when they vote, they got way more power because it's 20 nations against one, against the Niiji, against the American Indian, who they put under another box, color and Negro. Let's see if I can find those 20 nations real quick, because maybe I can't find them right now, but I wish I could find them. But anywho, I don't want to hold up the conversation because I'm trying to find this. I'm trying to find it in the background. I think I found it. Yes. So the 20 nations who got together when they came over here on the steamboats to Ellis Island, they were the English, the Scottish, the Welsh, the Irish, the Dutch, the German, the French, Scandinavian, Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, Finnish, Italian, Greek, Spanish, Portuguese, Polish, Ukrainian, Czech, Hungarian, Balkan, Jewish, European people. They were all separate people. But when they come over here, and you'll notice on the box, when you go to fill it out, it said of European descent. This means you're white. So now we got more power. You come over here, you get power because you could check in this box now. And they got all of the sovereign people. They don't even have sovereign Amerindian, on there. They do, but they have Native Americans in that spot. It go deep. We can't even go into that part today. But now we all in these categories. So when they come over here, they say, hey, you're going to have to need your freedom paperwork. We coming over here in boats now. We making the laws. We squatting. We giving away 160 acres to indentured people who want to just come and take the land and help us. We telling all white men they have to be required to be on the slave patrol. You can't just say, I need to be on the slave patrol helping us colonize this place. is what they said. So these freedom paperworks, this was the key to unlock the control, because if now you are out and you just here, you don't know nothing about people done pulled up. I'm just imagining now, and you see somebody and they like, hey, where your freedom paperwork? Freedom paperwork? What the hell is that? Hey, you got to go to our court to get it. Go to court and get the freedom paperwork. You go to court, you like, what the hell is that? Then the judge say, you're not free, you're melanated. Are you Christian white man? And you say no. Oh no, you don't get your freedom paperwork. Now you're under a category. Does it make sense? So these were issued by the court. You had to have these paperworks. It had your name, your age, your height, your color, and physical description. It told your scars, your marks, and identifying features, your date and place of birth. What does this sound like? Do you got your freedom paperwork today? You got your freedom paperwork? What that sound like? Come on, man. Without these papers, a free melanated person could be arrested, jailed, and even sold into slavery as a fugitive. This is where it really hit me. Oh, if you didn't have your freedom paperwork, which was given by your court, you could be put in jail and arrested. So if you were free, you could be made a fugitive and sold into slavery because you didn't have the paperwork that they wasn't going to give you. So they... Okay. Why did they have to be employed? Why not just rely on enslavers? Why did people have to be employed? Because the slave patrols were created because individual enslavers alone could not control the entire population. Even the free melanated Niiji. It was too many of us already here. They feared rebellion. We made up so much of the population. Right? So they said, hey, you got to go to work. It was illegal for you not to have your work papers. Like, the 1700s, 1600s was all about making paperwork that was, I don't know, it just was like outrageous paperwork. Building a government on this outrageous type of mindset, ideology, is just really psychotic in my head. And I can't understand. Well, I understand why they did it to control and steal the land and be the majority and lie and act like they're one group when it's really a whole bunch of nations. When it's really a whole bunch of people attacking one people and trying to keep one people down. Right now, I watched a video with the Somalians. They come over here. They are able to get fresh credit, money, loans, buildings. They can have their own communities. But the people who built this country, the people who created the toilet stools, the spoons, the forks, the ACs, the stoplights, the lights, the GPSs, the internet, so much in this country can't even form a community, but everybody else can come and form a community, funnel billions of dollars back out at this place. And in this country, we want to know, oh, why not us? Because it was built on us being nobodies, the laborers. It was all built against the melanated Ameri Indian Niijis. That's why they said, hey, no, you're nothing but a Negro. Not giving you nothing. You calling yourself that? I'm not giving you nothing. Because when you call yourself that, that means that we own you, pretty much. So it went from slave passes to, you guessed it, the driver's license. Slave passes were the first state-enforced identification and movement permits. So it went from the slave patrol to the police officer. From the slave passes, aka your freedom pass, to driver's license. And this was first state-enforced identification and movement permits for a racialized population. Today's driver's license serve as a similar function. They are required to move freely, drive, and police can stop anyone without a valid license or registration. This all stems from where? This evil-ass history. Historians and activists note that modern traffic stops disproportionately target melanated drivers driving while melanated, echoing the way patrols stop any melanated person without a pass in the past. You know, It went from slave badges to vehicle registrations. Slave badges in cities like Charleston were early forms of state-issued occupational and movement passes tied to one specific role and location. Vehicle registration and license plates are modern equivalent to that. You think we ain't you think we not in the matrix? Come on now. The state requires you to register your car and display a plate, and a police can stop you for missing or an expired registration. Right? Both systems, the state uses paperwork and permits to control who can move, where, and under what conditions. This was the papers, please system. What's up, Tiff Rainey? Just got that number to get their badge. Tap those hearts, guys. So under slavery, melanated people had to carry papers, even free, sovereign, indigenous, autochthonous, Niiji. I want you to understand this. Nice specs, thank you. They tagged in the TikTok shop. All right. So you had to show your passes, your badges, your freedom papers at all times, and show them on demand to any white person. They didn't say some. They said any white person could ask you, hey, where's your pass, your freedom? And you could be like, hey, I don't know what the hell you talking about. I'm indigenous. They're going to say, oh, no, you're going to jail because this is illegal for you to be indigenous. Woo! I think that's the summary of today. It's illegal for us to be indigenous, guys. In case you haven't figured out, oh, we arguing. It's illegal. Just know it's illegal for you to be indigenous. So we realize the fight, you see all the other communities coming and building and getting money and billions sent here and billions sent there. This was built on the back of us. And it's illegal for us to do this. I know you thought that we was free because you got a freedom paperwork, but now you see exactly what the freedom paperwork means. Okay? Today, police can demand your ID, your license, your registration during stops, and people without proper documentation can be fined, arrested, or detained. This creates a system where movement is conditional on being under a system, having the state's permission, just as it was under slavery. Okay? Under slavery, enslaving the sovereign people, there was no sovereign. There was no movement of your own body. You were only property, not a citizen. So today, the debate is about sovereignty, guys. Tribe, and it's often the center on who is treated as a citizen with full rights and who is treated as a suspect to be controlled. And right now the immigrants say, hey, the sovereign people, they don't have any rights. It's illegal for you to be sovereign. And I think that's just the moral of the story. That's what I'm boiling down to see with all of the history, with all of the slave codes, with all of the, emancipation, with all of the things that they had to do from the 1619, where they had the first indentured servants moving into colonies and hereditary slavery. This means generational curses. This is why it's a generational curse. All the way to Massachusetts becoming the first American colony to legalize slavery as an institution in 1641. It started in Massachusetts, 1641. They were the first to legalize this. So that's why I say it's illegal for you to be sovereign, because they made it legal for you to be enslaved. And they kept it going, kept it going, kept it going, kept it going. And they just advanced. They hid behind words. They took away certain words. Instead of the slave patrol, they said, oh no, we'll just take that part off, call it patrol, the state patrol. But you know what I mean? Like, it's still the same idea. So we as people have to continue sharing the knowledge, continue waking up, continue being unapologetic, walking in your truth, knowing who you are, crown on, head high, and not being afraid to go back and read, because before, literacy was a ban, and it's not banned anymore. It's okay for you to go and read and learn what the hell happened. Right? It's okay to go and understand how this happened. And just as a recap, I'm just going to do a recap because I want to make sure I got everything. Just one more thing I wanted to talk about. 1776. A lot of people talk about 1776, 4th of July. But I want y'all to understand something about this time. So in 1776, the Continental Congress adopts the Declaration of Independence. Right? But what else happened in 1776? Because remember, 1776, George Washington was not yet the first president. They already had the slave patrol going around publicly, legally harassing people using slave codes. They didn't have a government, but they did have the Continental Congress say, hey, we independent. They went to war, you know. But they also, during this year, passed the Fugitive Slave Act. So a lot of times when you hear about these laws and stuff that they were passing, it wasn't for we, the people. It was for them, the people. It was for them, the people. All right? It was for them, the people. Now, go forward to 1865. This is a little bit later. This is the time when 1865. This is when, you know, they said, hey, the 13th Amendment is ratified, formally abolishing slavery in the United States. But the problem that I have with that, there's a big problem. Right? There's a big problem. They said that, but they didn't mean that. Because in 1865 to 1866, after they said, you know, slavery is outlawed, it's abolished, they did Jim Crow in the Black Code still. This required us to sign annual labor contracts with white employers. I'm just really getting into the facts of it all. You mean to tell me y'all gonna outlaw enslaving us, but then say, hey, it's illegal for you to be unemployed? I don't think people understand that's how we are where we are now. Everybody feel like you gotta go hustle, go to work, pay this, gotta pay my car insurance, gotta pay this. You don't see the fuckery of it all, the generational curse of it all, the history of it all. So listen, you ain't behind, you just in the system meant to break your spirit. That's the only thing it's meant for, to break our spirit. So they require us to go and say, hey, no, I need to go get a job with a white employer. And if you were unemployed without a contract, without your freedom papers, they was just harassing you the whole time. And these black codes also made it legal for them to arrest you for things like loitering, walking without your pass. Say you didn't know about the pass. It wasn't no internet. They could just, hey, where's your pass, boy? You don't know what the hell they talking about, you going to jail. Because you don't know about the pass that they just made up in their head. Then in 1866, Reconstruction, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment to override black codes. So the 14th Amendment, people talking about the 14th Amendment, all this stuff, that was just for them to override the black codes, which said that they had to require all of us to go to work. If you didn't have your papers, you could meet in group. That was the black codes, because before civil rights, there was black codes, which is why we got civil rights that most of the people immigrate today and use, and not us. But then the southern states like Florida, Georgia, they said, okay, you know, after the Civil Rights Act, we got the KKK now, the Night Riders, to maintain control. This was when the Jim Crow era was formed. It was enforcing racial segregation in schools, transportation, public spaces, using homelessness, vagrancy, loitering to arrest melanated people, forcing them into convict leasing, which is just another form of slavery. So yeah, they didn't call it that, but they still did that. They still do it. We still colonize to this day. We in America think that we are so great. People think that America is so great. Built on lies, built on hate, built on systems like this that you just turn over and turn the other cheek and change the clothes and call it another name, but still have the same principle, still have the same hate. still have the same evil, still have the same denial. They still have the same principle. Still to this day. Right? Go to the 1900s again. We got driver's license, vehicle registrations as cars become more popular. This is built on the same idea as those slave passes. Stop and frisk, suspicion of vagrancy. If they suspect that you're homeless, and disproportionately target brown, melanated communities. This is crazy. So today, we as modern so-called free people, but really people in the matrix, still colonized, must have a government ID. This was not before colonization. This is something that colonizers instituted. This isn't normal behavior. Passport, state ID, vehicle registration, license plates, proof of address, employment, legal statuses. This is where it came from. Without these so-called papers, your freedom papers, you can still be fined, arrested, and detained, just as enslaved people could be seized without a pass. I hope this connects the dots for us today. This definitely connects to us and our sovereignty. Okay? We don't control how we move with these paperwork, with this government. We don't. So that is the issue, and that's the debate that we have right now. How do license, registration, and policing continue a system where freedom of movement depends on being under this system and having the state's permission? Where do we go from here, guys? Where do we go with these 20 distinct European origin people being a coalition against one people to not only confuse them and tell them who they are when they're not even from here and act like they're more American than you, erase your history, call you something that you're not, proudly to try to disenfranchise you every day, and you accept it because you believe the history. You don't know that it's just the English, the Scottish, the Welsh, the Irish, the Dutch, the German, the French, the Scandinavian, the Italian, the Greek, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Polish, the Russian, the Ukrainian, the Czech, the Hungarian, the Balkan, and the Jewish people all collectively gathered under the white category and spewing their hate on you because they know that they're immigrants and they know that you're indigenous. And some of them may not know because history does not teach these things. It will not teach these things, and it is scared to teach these things. And that's why it matters to me today, because I'm always trying to figure out what they did to trick my ancestors. And I see it every day. Like, it's just crazy what they did to trick our ancestors into this weak spot of control and paperwork. They just made it illegal to be melanated and sovereign. That's it. That's all. That's it. This matters because understanding the origin removes the shame. Okay? You're not lazy. You're not a criminal. You're not even behind. You are navigating a system that was built before you were even born or thought about. Niiji Saturday isn't about living in the past. It's about seeing the blueprint clear enough for yourself that you can stop mistaking control for care. You think that this is care, this is total control, mass control. And when you understand where the control came from, you stop asking why the system feels hostile. Stop asking why it feels like it's just so evil and it's against us. I mean, that's the birth of it. You can't expect something to turn into something that is not. Yeah, the clothes change. Yeah, the cars change. Yeah, everything look all official now, but it's still the same history. It's still the same beginning. How do we build something different? That's the next question we have to ask each other as a society, as a people. How do we pivot and build something that is different, that is for the people, that is not going to harm the people? All right. So that's the Hood to Hooded podcast today. I'm your host, Dr. Sean. The sellouts got us here. Yeah, the sellouts got us here. The sellouts definitely got us here. But where do we go from here? Where do we go? Does anybody know? Where do we go? Where do we go? I mean, I'm gonna always go to a spot of just like telling the truth. Truth telling has been like eye opening for me. The sellouts got us here. A lot got us here. And we live in a place where apologies and accountability and truth telling is not a thing when it comes to the government, when it comes to history. Everyone wants to sugarcoat it and start with the now and not ever go back to the past. And I'm guilty. I was never like a fan of history until I learned that history had everything to do with me. It had everything to do with controlling my mind. So now I have to know. You gotta know. You gotta know. It's a knowledge war, I guess you could say. And most people aren't gonna wake up because they don't want to read about it. Because it's a little scary. It's a little shocking. And we still dealing with the same system. Alright? So just know that, guys, it's illegal still to be sovereign. If you figured out how to break it, get out of the paperwork, like, don't overcharge the masses. Help us out. Like, it needs to be a mass awakening, a mass transition out of it. And I know some people know. Some people say, oh, I got my paperwork, I'm sovereign. But how do you help the masses? Because they help the masses. It's a mass unity. So you need mass sovereignty. That's the only way to break it. Mass sovereignty. What does this mean? This means you can travel without restriction. No one's over you. They're not going to have a literacy ban. You're a part of your own nation versus being a part of some immigrant nation thinking that you're going to vote in. No. I'm sorry. The research I'm showing or doing shows that I don't think that's going to happen that way. It has to be on us, not the colonizer, to fix us. Because their whole goal is to dismantle us, not to fix us, not to give us billions, not to send us billions. They send billions. I wonder how many billions have they sent across seas since the government was started. I wonder how much that would be. Let's see. I know that's a ludicrous question, but and then I'm gonna be off of here. I want to know how much, if it can just even tell me that, because I'm just like wondering, like, people thinking that, oh, we're gonna get, no, we're not gonna get nothing if they gotta give it to us. Because I'm gonna tell you, so when you wonder, oh, no, we have to change our identity and be sovereign, guys. If they wanted to give us money to be free, they would have did it. But why would someone who planted the seed of enslavement now plant a seed of freedom for you, when every seed they plant is about tricking you to think you free so they can still keep you enslaved? I don't care about the money, just the land. Oh, same. I don't care about the money. We want our land back. That's why sovereignty matters, because you get your land back. We don't care about the money. This is why we have to wake up. We so bent on the money, so bent on not knowing who you are. Reparations, we from Africa. No, you're not. Do your genealogy. Likely you're from here. In the National Archive, like my tribe who don't know that they in the National Archive. We in the National Archive. My grandparents, great-grandparents, oh yeah, they in the National Archive. Why are my grandparents in the archive? Because they are this country, right? But they're not gonna tell me that. I had to go find that myself. Can I scream it any louder? You gotta go find it yourself. You waiting for somebody to... No. I had to go find it myself, log into Ancestry, and really have the curiosity to know who I am for real. Like, now, if I'm from Africa, this is going to lead me to Africa. When I open it up, I'm like, damn, I'm not even from there. They got me believing I'm from somewhere I'm not, because I'm not doing the research. No one taught me how to do the research. Everybody just going around claiming something that they're not. Nobody knows because it was built this way. Because you got to have your freedom paperwork. And they going to tell you where you from, but they giving you your freedom paperwork. But anyway, since 1789, when the U.S. government was first started, this thing estimates that they have sent trillions of dollars overseas in today's dollars. This matters because they stole our land, and now they're making trillions of dollars off the land and sending it overseas. And you think they're going to send something right here? No, because then you would be over them and in control and empowered. Why would I do something to empower people that my whole goal is to break their spirit? A conservative defensible estimate would be 25 to 35 trillion dollars spent on wars, foreign military operations, foreign aid, empire maintenance, and global influence since the founding of the federal government in 1789. That number may shock people because they're trained to think annual budgets versus centuries of extraction of money. Trillions of dollars. Trillions. And that's a lot. That's a lot. We built the whole world in that case. Exactly. You just hit. Man. You just hit it on the head. You just made me go a little deeper with my thinking. We built the whole world in that case. If we got the inventions we not getting credit for. You got our land you making trillions off of, and we think we supposed to get something, but you done sent trillions. Come on, man. It's just the we gonna keep believing the lie forever? Come on. Trillions. Not billions. They sent trillions already. They can print this money. Are you going to work laboring? Come on, man. We got to think, guys. We got to think. It's sad. It's really sad. Okay? It's sad. A government since 1789 sending trillions of dollars overseas, because remember those countries that we talked about that were all a part of being white, they sending money to all their countries where they came from, you know, when they don't have any money for housing here, health care, education. None of that. So you see who the priority is. A government that can fund centuries of overseas enforcement but claims poverty at home is not broke. It's prioritized. And you hit it on the head. We built the whole world in that case. Through the genius inventions, through the culture, which they say we don't have. I'm so sick of people saying, where's the culture? I think that you're actually copying it. Just like you try to erase us off of our land and then say this is your land. You try to erase and steal the culture and say it's your culture. We already dug into Elvis and all the people he copied. James Brown, Little Richard. Everybody he copied. We already know. We already know. So you can't trick us out of our spot no more, and they don't like that. So I need us to wake up, rise up, stop being manipulated, stop feeling like, oh, someone is coming to save us. Unity has to save us. Sovereignty has to save us. Knowing your tribe has to save us. Being unapologetic will save us. But thinking that someone is coming to save us? No. Okay? I'm getting off of here now. Yes, Lala said, thank y'all for tapping in. I enjoyed chit-chatting with you about something so serious still happening today. Hopefully it helps us realize what is going on in this country, the origins of these things that we are oppressed by, and hopefully maybe, I don't know, the oppressors, I don't know what to say about that, but I'm getting off of here. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank y'all for the clarity, for tapping those hearts. We didn't hit our goal of 1K hearts on TikTok, but we definitely hit our goal of learning, waking up our spirit, and just sending positive vibes early this morning. I enjoy you. Thank you, Lala. I enjoy having you in the chat as well. I enjoyed y'all just chilling out with the doc as we continue to grow, tackle these tough issues, and realize who we are. All right. Have a good day, everyone. Peace. Make sure you share, like, follow, subscribe. If you want your Hood to Hooded merch, you can grab that in the link. Today I am wearing something tagged in the TikTok shop. It's this cinnamon swirl lip kit. Boom. Glasses, earrings, ring tagged in the TikTok shop. And hope you brushed and flossed your teeth today. This is that Sea Light oral spray. Very refreshing, has probiotics. So that's just my little, housekeeping. But I will see y'all tomorrow, 8 a.m. I'm trying to get it together with the 8 a.m. because I realize if I'm going to be consistent, I know I don't have to be perfect, but to me, honoring my 8 a.m. time is going to just help us have a solid meeting time. Some kind of way I got to just do it. It's tough, but if anybody can do it, I can do it. So I got to be the example, lead the tribe by the example, keep the hooded room alive, keep it interactive, growing, and yeah, so we in this together. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow, 8 a.m. EST, and Dr. Shizzy is out.